rock and roll. Get ready to rock and roll.
Hi everyone, welcome to Rock and Roll. It's season 3 and we are privileged to be with you on what is Sri Lanka's best rugby show. We are going to be looking at everything to do with schools rugby. We're going to look back at the knockout tournament, look forward to the league tournament as well, and a lot of new segments coming up as well. We have a very special Vantage guest, my good friend all the way from New Zealand, Jamie Wall, will be joining us on the show, and of course Shafin Majid on the recovery room, and you'll have another segment to look at exactly how to build yourself up to be a rugby player. That's the Performance Lab. That's something to look forward to in this season of the show. Of course, we'll be analysing what went wrong and what went right in the knockout tournament and looking forward to the first week of schools rugby action and of course, Sri Lanka's big game against the New Zealand under-85s in this segment of Ruck and Roll. Welcome to Rock and Roll Season 3, where you get the best rugby analysis in the country. We're talking about the schools rugby season, and we have, of course, the knockout tournament to look back upon, and we have the big fixtures from the upcoming first week of schools rugby action to look forward to as well. But let's analyze the groups first on Rock and Roll with my good friend joining us once again for Season 3, Abdella Yusuf. Abdella, as a Royal captain, it might be a little bit of a difficult topic to start off the show with, but let's talk about that knockout final. 58 points to 26. Nobody expected that. I don't think even Trinity expected to win so handsomely against Royal, but what did you make of the game?
Yes, I thought Trinity was just absolutely outstanding on the day, Shanaka. Yes, Trinity probably went into that game as favourites, but I think that the performance on the day just took everyone by surprise. I thought tactically they were really good. Their kicking game was outstanding. They used their options at 9, 10 and 15 extremely well. And also it was the variety of their kicks. I thought they did use the chip well. They used the cross kick. And in that first half, when they were playing with the wind, they did kick deep. So they just kept that Royal back three guessing. And I thought tactically they played it very smart, because up until the semi-final, I thought Royal's defense was outstanding. That first line of defense, they were using the rush defense extremely well and basically throttling the other team's attack. But Trinity, they had the class, they had the skill, and the execution on the day in terms of their kicking game was brilliant, which also rubbed off on the other aspects of the game from there on.
Yeah, it really was an outstanding performance in terms of skill execution, not something we see too often in schoolboy rugby, is it, Abdella?
Yes, I think the maturity of this Trinity team was striking, isn't it? I think they have, if I'm not mistaken, 11 to 12 players who were part of the league-winning team last season. So there's a lot of experience there, a lot of players who know how to win. So I think that performance to me showed that they're definitely going to be the team to beat this season.
Has it also put a target on their back, though? Are they going to go out there and get absolutely mauled up front? Our team's going to try everything they possibly can to nullify the Trinitians?
Yes, they're definitely going to have that X on their back from now on. But then again, they also have the experience to cope with that, and the class as well. So yes, they're going to find some teams, but there are a few teams who can cause them problems as the season goes on. But they definitely have the cattle to withstand that kind of pressure and come out on top.
Yes, so that was a really impressive performance from Trinity. We'll have a look at how Trinity fared in that knockout final, and of course there are a few other teams that did really well. We had Wesley, St. Peter's, and a couple of other teams, Anand, Lumbini, all these guys that might really take a few scalps when it comes to the league season. We'll take a look in more detail at how Trinity fared on the day when Abidh looks at the Fondre Future 15 later on in this Rock and Roll segment as well. So let's have a look at the groups. That's what everyone's talking about now. We don't have any rugby to really talk about, but let's look at the groups and how they pan out in this schools rugby league. Group 1A, we have the champions, Trinity College, against the semi-finalists, Isipatana, then DS, Sri Sumangala, St. Anthony's and Lumbini. Group 2A, we have Wesley College and Peters College, who played off that brilliant quarterfinal game in the knockout tournament. St. Joseph's also, who came back from the brink against Kingswood, Anand, the Mahanama, Prince of Wales, and Group 3A, we have the two traditional rivals, Royal and St. Thomas's, Kingswood, Zahira, Thurston, and Science, all very close run things, Abdella.
So just looking at the groups, the way it has been lined up, I think in Group 1A, you'd have to say Trinity and Isipatna pretty much look the favourites to go through there. DS do have the ability to probably cause an upset, maybe against Isipatana, and of course don't write Sri Sumangala off as well. I thought there were aspects of their game that could worry certain teams in that group. But on the whole, you'd probably say Trinity and Isipatana to go through from Group 1A.
I'm not sure I completely agree with you, Abdullah. I think DS and Sri Sumangala will have real designs on number 2. Because I think Trinity College are way ahead. They will probably get through in that group. But Isipatana, they haven't really given me a convincing performance yet. I'm sure they're going to come through. But still, on what we've seen so far, DS and Sri Sumangala really do have the goods, I think, to maybe to really create an upset in Group 1A. And if they do create an upset by beating somebody above them, that means that there's a door open for DS to get through as well.
Yeah, that's right. They do have the players in their armour. If you look at DS and Shanaka as well as Sri Sumangala, they have got some big forwards. So, for instance, a game against Isipatana, if they manage to control possession and just keep their discipline, which I think probably let both those teams down in their quarterfinal games, if they can just continue to do that, then there's a chance that they could cause some problems for Isipatana as well. And of course, don't write off St. Anthony's. They had a pretty tough loss against Royal in that pre-quarter final, but in Kandy, they could turn out to be a completely different proposition.
Absolutely, and let's not write off Lumbini as well. Already some silverware under their belt, so they're going to be a very interesting proposition too. Let's move to Group 2A, and then we have Wesley College taking on St. Peter's College. We've already seen these two teams against each other. Looks like I am more convinced that these two teams will convince from this group, Abdullah. St. Joseph's, I don't think they've got the goods. Ananda might be able to get close for 60 minutes, but I don't think they're a 70-minute team quite as yet. They've got some very good individual players, but I don't know whether they're a 70-minute team. And then we got Mahanama and Prince of Wales as well.
Yeah, that's right. I think, as you very clearly said, Shanaka, this is a bit more clear-cut, isn't it? St. Peter's and Wesley both have a lot of quality in their team. And that match in that quarterfinal between those two schools was probably one of the better games in that knockout competition. So I think it's fair to say that those two teams are favourites to go through to that cup segment from the Group 2A.
And let's look at Group 3A. We have Royal College taking on St. Thomas's College between 1 and 2. Then, of course, Kingswood. And a team that is really champing at the bit, the team that really wants to go under the radar and announce themselves is Zahira College, Abdella. And then you've got Thurston and Science, of course, who have been decimated by a few injuries and losses of players. But looking at Zahira there to really spring an upset.
Yeah, for me, of course, this is the real group which has a lot of intrigue to it. If you just take St. Thomas's, Kingswood, Zahira, I get back Royal to make it through to the next round. I think there could be some real competition between those three teams, because don't write Kingswood off as well. I thought they've been through a bit of a hard time, but you could see that they have been gradually building over the last few years. And also, interestingly, I think there are 3 games against Royal, Zahira, as well as St. Thomas's will be up in Kandy.
Absolutely.
So there can be a really different proposition when they're playing at home as against when they're playing in Colombo. So I think that group is going to be really close and really tight. As you said, Zahira, yes, they're probably the team that ran Trinity closest in that knockout. I think they're leading at halftime even in that quarterfinal. So they too have the ability to spring a surprise or two. So I think that group is going to be one to watch out for.
Yeah, it really is going to be, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of action at the bottom end of those tables as well. Nobody wants to finish dead last, and I don't think any of the teams have the quality to deserve to be last in those teams either. So everyone's going to want to finish a little bit above where everyone's anticipating they would. So that's going to be a really make for a really interesting group season as well, because often you have lopsided games in this part of the season. Abdullah, I don't think we'll see as many.
Yes, we won't. And also what's good about this format is every single team, they have opportunity to play. So even the lesser teams, although they may not be able to compete against the top teams in that first round, if once they go to the next round, they'll probably find teams which of equal ability and equal skill and equal physicality.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really good structure that they have come up with, and more importantly, all teams will get the maximum amount of matches to play, which is good to say at school level.
Well, let's see how that goes, guys, because ultimately we're looking forward to produce players for the Sri Lanka team. But let's look at the future of the immediate future, where we have the fixtures coming up for round 1 of the Schools Rugby League. Everyone has been waiting for. We have Wesley taking on Prince of Wales in a top versus bottom clash there in Group 2A. We have DS taking on Sri Sumangala, which I think is going to be one of the pick of the games this season. St. Peter's versus Mahanama. Ananda taking on St. Joseph's. That could be a close match as well. And St. Thomas's Thurston. Don't write off Thurston, but of course St. Thomas is hosting them in Mount Lavinia, so they'll be favourites.
Yeah, that's right. All those games will probably go a bit close at the start of the season, because yet it's pretty much the early part of it. But there are some clear favourites who will probably emerge from that. And as you said, probably the 2 games to watch out for from this particular list will be DS versus Sri Sumangala, and of course Ananda taking on St. Joseph's.
So that's the fixtures for week number 1. And then we have Trinity College taking on Lumbini. That's going to be an interesting clash. You've got 2 silverware winners already. We got Kingswood taking on Zahira, which I think is going to be an absolute humdinger of a game. Both teams like to run the ball, and both teams not as big, Abdella, so they don't really have that forwards grind to rely on. And then Isipatana taking on St. Anthony's, Royal taking on Science. You'd think that Isipatana and Royal were favourites.
Yes, both of them playing in their home conditions as well, so they'll be clear favourites. But as you said, probably the pick of the game for the entire first week of that Schools League will be the game between Kingswood and Zahira.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So going to be lots to look forward to, guys, as week 1 looms, and it's going to be a super weekend for rugby as well, because we have Sri Lanka taking on the New Zealand under-85s. We'll be talking to Mr. Jamie Wall, our good friend from New Zealand, in the Vantage Point segment of Ruck and Roll Season 3 upcoming. But thanks very much, Abdella. We're looking forward to the week 1's fixtures. We'll have a lot to talk about when we come back next week.
Sure, Shanaka. Thanks.
Welcome to Ruck and Roll. We are on the Fondre Future 15 segment, where we are going to be analysing some of the best players of the school's rugby circuit and some of the players that we will be wanting to keep an eye out in the future. We are first going to be having a look at 3 of the players from the recently concluded Dialogue Schools Rugby Knockout Championship winning team, Trinity College. We're going to be having a look at Udan Vijayakone, Abdul Malik and Shan Altaf, the 9, 10 and 15 of Trinity College Kandy. But before we go there, we're going to first analyse the game that was played at the Sugata Dasa, where Trinity faced against Zahira College rather. We're going to have a look at the clips here. Have a look at this clip here. This is where Trinity is playing against the wind, and you can see Shan Altaf just misjudging that ball. The ball goes over his head, which actually eventually led to a try. Now here's another one of those instances where the ball travels over their head, over Trinity's back 3, and they just find it a bit difficult to judge that ball. Here's another one of those kicks. Yeah, there you go. Trinity just missing out on their communication in that clip once again, where you see, there you go. Now, Trinity and Zahira were one of the only few teams that were to play in the Sugata Dasa, and the Sugata Dasa, let me tell you, is a very, very difficult stadium to play at if you haven't played there before, or if you haven't read the wind there before. And now Trinity, they walk into the finals against Royal College, their arch rivals, and they know exactly what they want to do. Have a look at this clip. This is the 50-22 from Abdul Malik. Yes, a fantastic kick, but there's a little bit more than that goes behind that kick. We'll have a look at it once again. Here's the ball coming in from the scrum half. Trinity's 10, Abdul Malik kicks, and just have a look at Simak Shafiq, the Royal fullback, who runs in. And now we'll look at it on the reverse angle as well. When the kick is made, just have a look at Simak there. He runs in for a second and then misjudges the ball. The ball carries, it goes over his head rather. Just look at the flags as well. You can see that Royal is playing against the wind. Trinity is playing with the wind, and they know that. And after that, Trinity start to exploit that. They start to push the Royal 15, the Royal 11 and the Royal 14 as far back as possible. And you'll see it through these clips as well. Now this kick from Abdul Malik is not a great kick, But that's where the Royal 15 comes in. We'll have a look at it once again. The kick from Malik, and Simak just comes into the frame. So he's dropped back maybe around 10 or 20 plus meters back from where he would have been. And that is all due to that very first 50-22 from Abdul Malik. This kick once again from Shan Altaf. It's a huge kick. And you can see how far back Royal is positioned. Now this is where Trinity is slowly trying to get Royal into that trap. Shan Altaf again, a mastermind in this victory for Trinity College. And from there on, Trinity start exploiting that little gap that they've created. Now this is where Udan Vijayakon, the player of the match in that final, comes into fro. Here's the kick from him, a little box kick. And he starts putting those little box kicks in because there you go, that's where Simak comes in. He comes in from far behind. We'll have a look at it once again. He times that kick perfectly and he also places that kick perfectly. We'll have a look at it. There you go, another little kick there. Not much of a kick, but they just keep the Royal back three guessing, and they always put their chasers up there, Trinity College. So that is some good work from the Trinity number 9, Udan Vijayakon. Again, Trinity get their chasers up, yes, but have a look at how far back the Royal back three have to position, and all of this is because of the tactical brilliance of the 10 and 15 from Trinity. Now this is where we analyze another player from Trinity, the man who won the Man of the Match award, the Trinity number 9. Have a look at this kick. It's a little box kick, but it's more than a box kick. He finds that gap between the first line of defense from Royal and the last line of defense as well. Look at this clip once again. They go into contact. Vijayakon is the player that we're focusing on. He spots the gap, has a quick look up, and then puts the little box in. And look at how far back the Royal fullback is. And now all of that is because of the tactical masterclass that Trinity provided when it came to the kicking. And a few more clips just to show you how effective the box kick from Udan Vijayakon was. This one too is a good kick, but Trinity get their chasers up and they make sure that they trap Royal in that position. It's a small little kick, doesn't do much to the gameplay, but it just stops Royal in that position. Now, a few more box kicks from Udan Vijayakon that won Trinity a lot of space. Here's one of them. It's a very good kick. Trinity have come forward and they made sure this time that the Royal back three have come up, and Udan Vijayakon spots the gap and puts in a very, very good kick. That's why he's featuring in our Fondre Future 15. One more kick from him. This one was just genius. Not just from him, but the man who chased behind that ball as well, Hamza Abdin, who scores the try for Trinity. So it's all about vision there from Udan Vijayakon playing in the number 9 jumper for Trinity. And that's exactly why we have picked him in this segment. Now, Trinity's victory in the final can't be just given to one player only. There were 3 players I thought that played very, very well. And that were the playmakers, number 9, number 10 and number 15. We'll have a look at this clip. This is where all 3 of them seamlessly combine. Let's have a look at Shan Altaf there. He spots the gap in the corner. He communicates that to Udan Vijayakon, the scrum half. He also tells Abdul Malik that he's going out wide. Get the kick in. Abdul Malik gets the ball from Udan Vijayakon early doors. The cross kick goes in. And beautiful work from Trinity to get that score. It was a huge win from Trinity College. And all 3 of these players played very well. There you go. That's the same clip once again for you. Shan Altaf goes out wide, and then the communication comes from Abdul Malik, gets the ball from Vijayakon and puts a very well flighted and very well weighted cross kick for his captain to score. So those 3 players pull the strings for Trinity College in the finals, and that is why they feature in our Fondre Future 15.
Live rugby. Prima Kotumi Fantamari.
Creamy richness redefined. Smooth, soft, spreadable. Introducing Ultra Soft Fondre with canola and sunflower oil.
Every modern office needs sophistication, cutting-edge precision, and seamless support. Which is why every modern professional needs Vantage. For those who demand the best, Vantage delivers. Elevate your performance every day. Vantage for the modern professional.
Welcome back to one of our favorite segments here, the Recovery Room on Rock and Roll. And we have our good friend Shafin Majid with us as usual. And he'll be talking to us about physio, about recovery, about how to make our bodies ready for the sport we all know and love. And we're in partnership with Durden's Hospital this time around. Welcome back, Shafin. Good to have you on season 3.
It's great to be back and share some knowledge which I've had and then the experience that I brought in.
So Shafin, it's one of the periods in the season that physios are the busiest at, the strength and conditioning people are the busiest at. It's the close season, it's the pre-season, what we like to call the pre-season, and that's where most of the physical work gets done so that you can taper that off. Talk to us about how you periodize this stage. Shafin, periodization is something that not a lot of coaches and not a lot of players understand. So can you just talk us through the concept?
Definitely. So a periodization plan is something that not just a SNC coach would do, but it's a whole season in total. Sometimes it might be even 4 years of periodizing as a plan. With the players, you have to groom them for the 4th year. But within a season, we break it down, right? So it used to be very scientific. We used to break it in blocks, saying, okay, this period of time we're going to do hypertrophy, this period of time we're going to do strength, and then power, and then speed, like that, right? But now where the science has caught up, so it's called undulating periodization, which is a bit, it has been in the scene for a while, but not a lot of coaches are aware of it. So like if coaches have learned it maybe 10 years ago, it has come a long way in terms of how you manage players' loads, players' injuries, and how you ramp up, and we call the peak in sports performance, how you achieve that peak and how you stay there is what all the whole periodization is. So we start off with the initial preparation, making sure all the players are ready, and as the season starts, we don't start all guns blazing. Psychologically, yes, but physically it's up to the strength and conditioning coaches. So that is something that we can talk a bit more in the future episodes as well, how we go into those small niches and how each person and each coach has their role in that particular segment.
And why is periodization so important, Shafin? Why don't you just work players hard from the beginning to the end of the season?
Yes, it used to be like that, and I know some schools are still like that, where the coaches want players to be pushing every single session of the week. It does work sometimes because you have 1 year with those players, and sometimes if you have a very good crop of players who can handle it, which is very few and far between. So if you have one of those teams that can handle that load, you probably might pull it off, right? But or you have the risk of letting it fall off at the exact time you want everyone to be at peak performance, right? So it's a matter of gradually building it up. One main thing is where we are involved is managing injuries. So that's one of the most important thing with strength and conditioning. There are top international coaches in strength and conditioning. They have a tagline which says, it's not about building just strength. It's about getting an athlete to train hard without getting injured. So that's when you will be able to get that athlete at his highest performing level to compete as a team at the highest performing level. So that's where periodization would come in. And that's why we need to do it, because if you keep going at that maxed out intensity, the players are always going to break down. Just as a car, you won't be able to go 100 miles an hour around the country the whole day, because the cars need time to recover, they get overheated. Same with the human body, our muscles have only so much capacity that they can do. So we will obviously need to let it rest, recover. The most important thing with periodization is the theory which we call supercompensation. So supercompensation is you give a player or an athlete a deload week, and then the week after that is when you can actually hit them hard, right? So their ramp up in intensity, training volume is going to be, you will be able to push them a lot harder by giving them a couple of weeks of deload or even a week of deload in between the season.
So what I'm seeing when you talk about all that is, Shafin, I'm seeing a bunch of Excel sheets, a bunch of people sitting around the computer saying, no, I want this guy pushed hard, I want this guy available for this week, how is this guy going? Is that how it works?
I wish it was that everywhere. All the coaches want are their best players. Even internationally, I'm pretty sure the coach wants the best player to play. But sports science has caught up to know that, okay, to be able to show you the evidence that if this guy plays like this for another 4 or 5 weeks, he's definitely going to, number one, lose weight, which is going to lose power, yeah, and then he is at a higher risk of injury. The amount of load that your body can handle is limited, right? And going through stress over a period of time not only breaks down physically, it breaks down mentally. That's something that we all as physios also need to be aware. We are here to treat physical injuries, but there's a mental aspect that we don't think about, because central nervous system fatigue is a real thing. You can't measure it with a lot of the equipment we have. We can ballpark it, but measuring central nervous system fatigue or overtraining is what we call it in the sports field. You can't measure something like that without proper equipment, but we have small guides that we can use to monitor it.
So that's a really important one for those of you watching. CNS fatigue, central nervous system fatigue, is something that doesn't get talked about a lot. And the reason it's important, Shafin, isn't it also because it's school kids? Because it's not like it's professional athletes who go home and rest and have someone giving them the best possible meals and having someone giving them a massage on their time off or anything like that. They're not going home to the best of facilities. You have to, once you finish practice, you probably get in the bus, you go home, you eat whatever your mom gives you, and then you try to study and get some sleep. So sometimes less is more, isn't it?
That is very true, because through my experience as a physio being a part of a team, we've seen certain strength and conditioning coaches who don't push the athletes too much, right, during the week. And as a new coach or a new physio or a new trainer, you would be like, what's this coach doing? The athletes are not pushing hard enough. But when it comes to game day, they are able, or their capacity to push hard is very high, because is nothing better than a good night's sleep of rest, right? So if you have a hard session, I think players and coaches need to prioritize the sleep on that specific day. There's nothing called catching up on sleep. It's, if you miss your sleep, you're going to have to.
There's a sleep debt.
There's a sleep debt, basically, yeah. And no one has the smart watches to see or monitor. Not everyone has it to monitor how much sleep you're getting, how much stress levels you have. But those are things that we as a team who have resources can do. So if we have just a smartwatch in the team and you feel, okay, this guy is going to be overtrained, you can maybe plug in a smartwatch onto him and just monitor him for a week and see. So obviously coaches need to be willing to take that data in and make those changes. That's a separate story, but it's up to us to just give those maybe yellow flags or before it turns into something of a freak accident or a ACL or a huge concussion.
So things like ACLs and obviously concussions and things are perhaps contact injuries that maybe we can't prevent as much, but things like ACLs, hamstring tears, shoulder dislocations and things like that all can be managed with good off-season training, right?
Exactly, because if you have a injury which has happened maybe 2 or 3 weeks into the season, there's definitely going to be some sort of a trail of breadcrumbs, if you call it, right? To see, okay, there might be a lack of sleep, there might be exams during that week, the players are probably having a lot of mental stress. Depending on what type of coach you have, you might be having a lot of psychological stress, pressure from the team, pressure from your captains, pressure from home life. You don't know what these players are going through sometimes. So all that accumulates, and then it's sometimes at the highest stress during a match. Maybe it could be the final. It just blows out, and then you might just think, okay, it's just a matter of luck, but it's actually something that has momentarily built onto it to just explode at one point. And having a player, your best player, going down at the peak of the season is the biggest blow any coach or any team can have.
Well, that's what Shafin and the rest of the team and the recovery room will certainly be looking at, and we'll be talking about much more of those things throughout the course of season 3. Of course, you'll pick up a lot of knowledge on this show thanks to Shafin, and of course you will be able to make sure that you get the best treatment thanks to the recovery room as well. Shafin, thanks for joining us. Looking forward to exploring these subjects in much more depth.
Yeah, definitely. It has been great.
Thanks again to our friends at Durden's also for being part of the recovery room, one of the best facilities that you're going to come into contact with.
Hi, I'm Raveen from Fitness First, and today we are going to talk about why strength and conditioning is essential for rugby players.
Rugby is not just a game of skill, it is a game of strength, power and teamwork. Every time players step onto the field, they face tackles, scrums, rucks and powerful collisions. Going to the gym helps rugby players build the strength needed to protect themselves and perform at their best. Gym training makes players faster, stronger and more explosive. Strong legs help with the sprinting and driving in scrums. A strong core helps maintain balance during the contact. A contact upper body helps with tackling and ball control. Without strength training, it becomes very hard to compete at a high level. The gym also helps prevent injuries. Rugby is a tough sport, and strong muscles and joints act like armor of the body. When players train properly, they can stay fit, recover faster and play longer. In conclusion, the gym is not optional for ruggerites, it's essential. It builds strength, confidence and power to give everything for the team.
Every modern office needs sophistication, cutting-edge precision, and seamless support. Which is why every modern professional needs Vantage. For those who demand the best, Vantage delivers. Elevate your performance every day. Vantage for the modern professional.
Recovery is more than getting better. It's about getting back to life. At Revive by Durden's, we've built a space where specialised care meets real transformation.
At Revive, we focus on combining wellness and rehabilitation.
Your recovery, your future. It starts here. At Revive by Durden's.
Creamy richness redefined. Smooth, soft, spreadable. Introducing Ultra Soft Fondre with canola and sunflower oil.
Live rugby. Prima Kotumi Fantamari.
We've got our season's first guest, and it's a very special guest, a foreign guest at that, Mr. Jamie Wall, one of the leading journalists in New Zealand when it comes to the All Blacks and everything to do with rugby. He's here in Sri Lanka for the Sri Lanka versus New Zealand under 85 kilogram tour. Jamie, welcome to Sri Lanka.
Thank you so much for having me.
We've met in Japan, we've met in France, and finally it's a real privilege to welcome you to my home.
Yeah, I know, and I hope one day I can do the same down in New Zealand, but it's fantastic to be here in Colombo. Haven't been here long, but I like what I see, and I like what I'm eating. The food's been fantastic.
It's nicer than Auckland, I have to tell you. It's nicer than Wellington.
Well, the weather's certainly nicer, I can tell you that much.
You guys are coming in out of a winter, but how are you feeling the heat? You've just been with the training session with the team.
Yeah, I was just at the training session today at the Celanese
Rugby Football
Club. Beautiful little ground there. Love their setup. You can just come straight off the pitch, straight into the pub. Obviously it's a bit of a new experience for some of the new caps this year coming into this sort of heat and humidity. The team has 19 players back from the last year. Nice. So for those of you out there who watched them play in those two matches, there's going to be a lot of familiar names in there. Spirits are high. Obviously they were pretty happy with the way things went last year, both on and off the field. And I think that we're hoping for another great turnout because that was the big story of the matches last year. But we're also just hoping to see some great rugby again.
Yeah, I think there certainly will be some nice, fast, open rugby because that's one thing that the under-85 boys bring to the table, isn't it? They don't really like that grind as much as maybe the 6'8" monsters that we're used to seeing on the international stage. So I think it's going to be really entertaining rugby. But there's expectation now, isn't there, Jamie? Because that's what happens when you've had one successful tour, you have to top it. So what have they been doing from their end to try and be even better than last time?
Yeah, great question. Don't want to give away too many secrets, just in case the Sri Lankan coach and team are watching. But obviously, yes, it is about building on what was achieved last year. They obviously had a lot of success in the forwards that perhaps they weren't expecting. And so it was just a case of shoring that up because I'm sure that it's something that the Sri Lankan team are going to want to try and get a bit of that back because that's where they had that success in that first game. Just around those sort of things. And also just maintaining what you said about fast, free-flowing rugby. This team has an identity. It has a bit of a legacy already to uphold around scoring points and playing a brand that's going to hopefully grow this grade around the world and get people watching it.
And what we haven't been able to talk about to someone on the ground, Jamie, is after last year's tour, how much excitement was there in New Zealand when the boys went back? How many stories were told over a pint saying, wow, you guys need to go to Sri Lanka, you guys need to play rep rugby under 85?
I don't think last year's tour could have gone any better in terms of what it achieved. This was a team that was, took a bit of convincing in order to get off the ground. We're lucky enough to have the support of Sir Graham Henry, who used his considerable mana and influence to get this thing going. And I feel like the players and the coaching staff and everyone else involved in it repaid it like 100 times the faith shown in it. And there's obviously been some incredible commercial opportunities opened up. We've had amazing support from Malaban. Get yourself some Malaban biscuits, everybody. They're fantastic. They're the best biscuits in the world. We're staying over at the City of Dreams, just across the road here, which is probably the nicest hotel I've ever stayed in, probably ever will stay in, to be honest. And so it's just those sort of commercial relationships that have been opened up. And also quite a bit of work just diplomatically as well. We had the New Zealand High Commissioner down at training today, Mr. Dave Pine, who is an absolute rugby nut. You'd love a chat with him.
I've met him.
Yeah. And I felt like I could have sat there and talked about rugby with him for about another 24 hours. Maybe I will when Kieran Reid gets here. A lot of boxes ticked both on and off the field for this team. and hopefully it's something that we can just continue to do. And I'll be back up here to talk to you again next year.
And Graham Henry was here last year. Kieran Reedo to you, is coming over. So these are not small names in the New Zealand rugby firmament. So they are taking it fairly seriously.
Yeah, absolutely they are. I mean, this is something that obviously the All Blacks are the main brand in New Zealand, and historically have been a way of promoting not just themselves as a team, but New Zealand as a brand in itself. And of course, they'll only go to certain countries. This is a really great way to come to an untapped market like Sri Lanka, a rugby mad nation, and one that can really, really appreciate a team like this. And hopefully it's something that can replicate and take to another country and say, here's another untapped market that this team can get into.
And it's uncharted territory for people in our trade as well, isn't it, Jamie? Because you're used to traveling the team around on tour. You're used to probably staying at the same hotels in maybe London or Paris or Tokyo or Sydney or wherever you may go to usually. But there's going to be more stories to write this time, not just purely about the rugby, but just more stories off the field, more colour pieces, more character pieces. It's going to be fun for you too.
What we're trying to do on this tour is focus a lot more on the attention that local fans have. Obviously, the colour and the noise and the excitement from the local fans was something that actually was a bit of a surprise last year. Now we know about that. We're going to be able to tell those stories a little bit better and take those back to New Zealand and say, hey, guess what? This country that you've associated with cricket for however many years is actually just as passionate about this sport as any other in the world, and it's a really cool thing, and it's something that we want to help you share with the world, and I think this is a great way of doing it. We did some good stuff last year, but we can do some great stuff this year.
Nice. It's really nice to look forward to. And as he said, the All Blacks are the main brand, of course, that Jamie will be writing about, that we're all used to. We'll be supporting two different teams on the weekend, but when it comes to the All Blacks, we're kind of on the same page. How are things going there, Jamie? A bit of turmoil in the last 8 months?
It's been a very, very interesting start to the year, I can tell you that much. Obviously, into the second week of January, we had a coaching announcement, which saw Scott Robertson become the first All Black coach to be fired from his role after 3 losses last year, 3 very different losses, the way that they happened, but mainly because of feedback that the players had given to New Zealand Rugby around the fact that they didn't really believe the team was heading in the right direction. It was the biggest story in New Zealand that month. It knocked all the politics stuff out off the front page. And then we had a couple of months of conjecture around who would replace him. And Dave Rennie, who last was seen in that part of the world coaching the Wallabies, used to coach the Chiefs, he used to coach Manawatu, and before that started out as Wellington, very successful Wellington coach, has taken over and has piece by piece put together his coaching staff, which is actually just sort of finished off today. Actually, the news came through that Gilbert Enoka is back, and there's a new team doctor,
James McCarvey.
Yeah, James McCarvey, and so yeah, everything's been kind of a bit. It's been not sure what the right way to say this. It's not unnerving because, you know, it's the All Blacks and we, you know, Dave Rennie's no mug or anything like that. But looking at their schedule, it's daunting because I believe firmly that this is the toughest schedule the All Blacks have faced in about 50 years.
Yeah.
4 tests against the Springboks. And on top of that, matches to start off the year against France, who may well be sending a B team, but it's a good one. Ireland, and an Italy side that just had a really memorable Six Nations as well. And then on top of that, there's a whole Nations Championship campaign at the end of the year. So my question, once that coaching change started happening, was, well, 3 losses last year was enough for an All Black coach to lose his job. Are we going to be doing this all again in September?
Yeah, it sets a dangerous precedent, doesn't it, Jamie? Because Not only was it just 3 losses and a 74% win rate overall in his coaching tenure for Scott Robertson, but when you have 4 years, or you've been told you have 4 years, you kind of do stuff in the first 2 that sets you up for 3 and 4. And Scott Robertson would argue, if he hadn't been gagged, that, look, this is what I was doing. I was blooding a whole bunch of new players who the new coach is going to be thanking me for eventually. And he's been doing that, and it's about performances. It's not really about outcomes or results, rather. And he can't say that, obviously, but has anybody been saying that on his behalf?
I don't think you can look back at the last couple of years and really say that Scott Robertson got it wrong with his selections. You mentioned the players that he's brought through. I think that's probably, if there's any positive legacy, that should be it about Scott Robertson, because if you look at the new players that he's brought in, they on the whole have worked, and all you need to do is look at who has won the World Rugby Breakthrough Player of the Year in the last 2 years. It's been 2 All Blacks, Wallace Teddy and Fabian Holland. And I think that he's also managed to get the best out of some players who were sort of okay coming in. And when I say that, I mean Tupou Vai, who's now potentially the best player in his position in the world. And Tyrell Lomax as well. And Lester Fainganuku has come back, because of the opportunity that Scott Robertson gave him. And I don't think there's really anyone in New Zealand rugby right now who can sort of put their hand up and say, well, I should have been in the All Blacks over the last couple of years. And to your point about blooding players and everything, yes, that's been very important, but I think what this message shows is a 73% win record over 2 years. Interestingly enough, one that is almost identical to Rassie Erasmus isn't good enough for the All Blacks. And I think that's New Zealand rugby really, really laying down the standard that they want, as well as perhaps pulling back the curtain on just how much the players have to say about the way that the team operates.
That's always a bit of a dangerous road to go down, I find, Jamie, when you ask the players, how's the team doing? You've got a team who'd like to be go down the pub, they'll be like, oh, training's too hard. And if you've got enough people of a critical mass saying that, then maybe the administration is going to be influenced. But for me, the biggest problem with that whole process, which a lot of people are lauding, is the fact that David Kirk and Kevin Mialamu and somebody else, I can't remember what his name was, Tom Ricker?
Don Tricker.
Don Tricker, yes. They were judge, jury, and executioner, which is problematic for me. I'd like to have them do the interviews, somebody else evaluate the interviews, and someone else make the decision. But David Kirk was involved in all 3 of those aspects. And for me, that somehow doesn't sit right from a governance perspective.
It's an interesting perspective that you have on this. I personally support the way it's been done. I think it showed clear leadership, and I think it showed that decisive action needed to be taken. And if you go back to the previous regime, New Zealand rugby were heavily criticised for some indecisive action around Ian Foster, and it led to a pretty crazy situation where Mark Robinson had flown over to Johannesburg in order to relieve him of his job, only to have his mind changed after several conversations over there. And it was a bizarre situation. They were heavily criticised for their indecision over that. So if we're going to criticise them indecision, I can't personally really fault them for how decisive this is. You can read between the lines quite heavily on what the players had said. I'm not saying that there was some sort of like rebellion or anything like that, but questions were asked, answers were given, and this is the outcome. I really respect Dave Rennie as a coach. I really respect Scott Robertson as a coach and as a person as well, but the decision's been made. I've just alluded to this very, very tough schedule that they've got, and now it's time for them to just get to work.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's going to be a short shift for him because he gets there in June, and he started test in July, and the boys are going to be done with Super Rugby in May. So
That's absolutely right.
that's a short road, but we'll be talking to Jamie about much happier things when we take him to see some schools rugby here, and of course I'll be seeing him on Saturday when Sri Lanka kick off against New Zealand under-85s at Racecourse. Make sure you are there to watch that game. Jamie, thanks for joining us, man.
Thank you for having me.
Cheers. All this time we've been talking about people playing games, but now the three of us are going to be playing a game as well. We have Prima Kottami, the hot and spicy flip card game, where Hamad, our producer, is going to ask us a question and we are going to respond whether we think it's hot or whether we think it's spicy. And let's see how it goes, guys. It's the first time we are playing it as well, so maybe cut us a bit of slack. Let's have the question. Trinity College starting strong at home and setting the tone early in the season. Hot or spicy? I think it's spicy. I know you guys are going to say hot, but I think it's spicy because they've got really put a target on their back, guys. It's what we talked about a little earlier, and they are going to have to live up to play that kind of rugby week in, week out. And even though they play well and win, people are going to be saying, oh, you didn't win by 40 points. Or since they've beaten Royal by 30 points, they're going to be saying, oh, you should have beaten the next opposition. You should have beaten Lumbini by 50. And that's going to be a problem because I know how Trinity College old boys are. You're one of them now. And this is going to be a bit of pressure, and it's up to Fazil Marija and the team to make sure that the team itself just gets rid of all that nonsense, all that noise, and just plays good rugby and achieves their targets. So I think that setting the tone thing was a little, was spicy, not so hot. That's the flip card game, guys. Royal College's pack controlling the game through set piece dominance, hot or spicy?
Well, the reason why I probably say spicy, I think Royal's game has evolved over the years. I think earlier they used to rely a lot on the driving more to score tries. But yes, they didn't quite work out in that final. But I thought in the lead up from the pre-quarterfinals, quarterfinals to the finals, I thought the three quarters ran extremely well. I thought they were brilliant in that game against Isipatana as well. So I don't think we probably have the pack this year where they can solely be dependent on that. So they will probably need to play with a little bit more width. And so far in those first three games, they seem comfortable doing that. So I think they'll have a bit more of an all-round game this year.
All right. And does Hamad have any other questions for us? Yes, he does. Isipatana walking onto the field and immediately lifting the intensity. Hot or spicy? Always hot. Abdella thinks it's spicy. You have to defend yourself again, Abdella.
Yeah, well, the reason I think is that we'll have to just wait and see. Probably the intensity which they would expect them to have brought into that semi-final, I just did not see that. Royal just won top of their game on that day, but they just didn't seem to have that intensity, and we know how strong they are in those knockout tournaments. Even last year, against the odds, they went on to win it. And for them to have gone down as tamely as they did in that game against Royal, for me, it's pretty much a wait and see how they will go for the rest of the tournament.
There's always something about the green jersey as well, isn't it?
Yeah, by no means am I writing them off. But for me, it's a bit spicy. We'll wait and see how it goes.
Wesley College backing their attacking style regardless of the opposition. Hot or spicy? Absolutely hot.
Okay, hear me out. So the game between Trinity and Wesley, in that game, I thought I expected Wesley to play that expansive game that they're known for. But when it came up against opposition that was strong and harder, that was going to hit them up, they had to change their tactics. And I thought Wesley were a bit complacent to change their tactics. So I'm not too sure how it's going to pan out, but I doubt they'd be playing that upfront game always. They'll have to pick and choose, especially that game against St. Peter's that they have in the group. they're going to have to rethink their strategies, maybe even in the middle of the game.
Well, that's a flip card game for the three of us, but remember the flip card game for all of you at home is still up for grabs. We have a question for you, and you can always send in your answers. Do you think it's hot or do you think it's spicy? And we will pick a winner from the guys who get the most amount of hots or the most amount of spices. We'll pick a winner from one of those groups and let you know who it is on next week's show. Well, that's a wrap for a jam-packed episode 1 of Season 3 of Ruck and Roll. Thanks very much for joining us here, guys. A huge thank you to our guest today, Mr. Jamie Wall. Hopefully we'll be speaking to him next week as well to review the first match between Sri Lanka and the New Zealand under-85s. Don't forget to make your way down to the racecourse and cheer on those Tuskers as they take on New Zealand opposition, and you might get a chance. Well, you will certainly get a chance if you get down there to watch a haka live. Not something that a lot of rugby fans get an opportunity to do either. So please make sure you get down to the racecourse and support the Sri Lankan team. Also make sure that you are watching your teams as they do battle in the Schools Rugby League. We'll bring you all that action, recap it for you on episode 2 as well. Thanks very much to our sponsors for joining us on the show. And if you want to make sure you keep connected to what we talk about here, you can read our column in the morning newspaper as well on a midweek morning. So thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week on Season 3 of Ruck and Roll.
Get ready to rock and roll! Rock and roll!